Sorry, Roger.
Can I ask you your take on something, Mike?
Yeah, of course you can.
Um, have you ever seen the painting Saint Michael in defeating the devil, where
No,
Saint Michael has his foot on the devil's head?
it rings a bell, but I can't recall it.
No. Whenever I started checking into some of the paintings and everything they have over in Europe, that there was something there that was pointed out to me, and it was supposed to be the fact that there's a story behind that. Like, you know how you were talking about everything symbolic
Yeah.
with
I've got a picture right in front of me now.
with Saint Michael having his foot on the devil's head. There's a
Yeah.
story behind that that goes back to Zoroastrianism,
Right.
and here lately, everything that Bob Dub and Vincent's been talking about when it comes to materialism and stuff like that, it just keeps making me think of that painting. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's fine when they think Saint Michael has his foot on top of the devil's head. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But the
Yeah.
moment he freaking jiggles loose, everybody starts freaking out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of people, I believe, back then who were self-proclaimed Christians, I believe personally, had a freaking belief system with Zoroastrianism too, because like they they would make paintings like that with messages inside of it,
Yeah.
So, and every time they talk now, it's like that painting sticks out to me. I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty interesting
It
how
is
that
a
is,
very
because
interesting
that's what.
painting.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's got the sword in his hand as well. Yeah.
It's really, really the best way I could say is it's really esoteric when you look
Yeah.
at that picture. It's got a lot of symbolism in it.
Yeah. Much so. Very much so. What's that in the background? I can't even see what it's got some sort of castle to the background on the left as well. He's got his wings there. Oh no, that might be the edge of his wings. Yeah, there's definitely something going on there. See, our belief system has changed so drastically, and I think it's been willfully changed. So we look at a painting now, and we can't see much in it other than a nice painting, but it actually meant something to these artists. They didn't just do it. And a good explanation of this is if you listen to any songwriter, Elton John, for example, he didn't just write these songs. These songs were inspiration from his life, what he was feeling at the time. And George Michael was exactly the same. What they're feeling at the time, they put down onto paper in musical notes and then sat there for a few hours, putting some music around these words that meant something. And I think artists were exactly the same. It was when you look at any sort of painting, you're looking at a glimpse of what's inside that artist's mind.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, it's fascinating. I get fascinated with paintings. I really do.
I think artists the ones you mentioned, where their paintings are sort of like a channeling. You
Yes.
know, and I can write. I've written songs in the past and um, made film. I made like solo podcasts, and I don't even know what I'm going to say. But when I start talking, it's like I'm visualizing my journey as I'm the subject I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
it's being channeled to me as I'm making it. So I think with these artists, and the same with a lot of filmmakers, showmakers, sometimes they're getting the ideas and they're channeling ideas. Sometimes we're getting little glimpses of the future, or maybe something in their picture will make sense to someone one day watching. Think, oh wow, that makes sense. It's just because they're channeling, but they don't realize it. They're just creating a film, but they
Yeah.
subconsciously maybe bringing a bit of the outside magic into the pictures, into the shows, into the videos, films, or whatever. And I think that's what these artists, especially back there, because there was no television, there was no movies. It was like he spent days, weeks, years doing his painting. Well, it's gonna come out, isn't it? It's gonna, you know what I mean?
Now, this ties in with something that it's just hit me like a sledgehammer, a realization. I've always been told I'm a voiceover by trade, as a radio presenter. So I'm sitting in my studio, my voiceover studio now, and I've got a little booth behind me. You can't see it because I built a pyramid in front of it. There's a booth, a sound booth behind me now. It looks a bit messy in here anyway. I've always been told by different mediums that this is the place where I am closest to the other side spiritually. And this is the place that they visit me, the other side. And I've taken all this with a pinch of salt until you started talking just then. This is the place where they're closest to me, and this is where I'll get contact with it. Now, I think there's a link, because of what you just said, between creativity and channeling.
Yeah.
I think people who are creative and put themselves into a creative frame of mind, doesn't matter where it is, it's got nothing to do with a place. It could be a building site. But if you're in a creative space, which is the right side of your brain, the side that is the subconscious, and the side that is connected 100% to an alternate dimension, if you put yourself in a creative place, you're opening the gateway for channeling. Because artists do it, songwriters do it. I've been told this is the place when I'm working that I'm closest to it. I mean, I've never knowingly channeled anything, to be honest with you, apart from once. I had a very strange experience once. And also, when I was writing the book, it's a very creative procedure. When you write a book, I had a ghostwriter that just rearranged it, or we took my words and just rearranged all the chapters so that it all made sense. He said to me, Mike, if you get inspiration, you get up at 4 o'clock in the morning if you can. Get up. If you get inspiration in the middle of the night, get up and go and write a couple of chapters. And when I was writing the book, I came across 3 situations that were the strangest situations that I've ever been in. And it's never happened since. And I'll explain it again in case there's anybody that hasn't heard me talk about this. I was sitting in my room in Romford, in the flat, in the second bedroom, and I had pieces of paper, and I've still got them all over the blinds in front of me now, different signs and whatever, different phrases from the Egyptian Book of the Dead and Buddha and Albert Einstein. And I was sitting there and I'm putting it, and in my room, it was bits of paper all over the walls. It was like a nutty professor's room. It looked, because I was trying to work something out. I was trying to get this out of my head and down onto paper so that I didn't keep going over and over and over it in my head. And then I read something on one of the screens on my computer. It was just a one line. And that one line triggered what can only be described as an avalanche of information. Since this time, I've spoken to a few mediums and they've gone, oh, as if it's nothing. Oh, yeah, no, you've had a download. That's all that is. And because I'm a bit of a computer geek, it was like a download, like you're downloading from a computer into a hard drive. So I understood it with the word download. But I hit this one line and then it went information streaming, hitting me. And I went, it was just, and I'll remember the feeling now, it was overwhelming. And that happened 3 times when I was writing the book. When I hit a particular line, it happened. When I hit the line again, when I read the line again after that fact, it didn't happen anymore. So it had nothing particularly to do with that line. And all I can say was, yeah, all right, well, I think it was a download. That's the closest I can come. But it was the weirdest feeling I've ever had. Do you know when you walk into a swimming pool and it's a cold swimming pool, but it's hot outside, and you go, it hits around the belly area, and you go, and you can't quite, it can't quite catch your breath. It was that, exactly that. And the first time it happened in the flat, I would stop, and it just went stop dead. So I went and got a cup of coffee. I came back, sat down again, and I said out loud, I was the only person in the flat, okay, show me again slowly, because the visuals in my mind's eye that went with this was jigsaw pieces all falling into place. And it created a pathway. So I said, show me again. So and the pieces did come, the jigsaw pieces, very, very, very slowly though. And I was just writing it down on the computer. I was typing it down on the computer. What I was seeing, what I was told, and all this mess that was on the walls at that particular point, all got put together in a particular order, and they started creating what we'd call it now a timeline. Although there was no dates attached to each piece, there was just a story, really, and that's where the Moses and the burning bush piece came into it. That was one of the pieces. So yeah, it happened 3 times when I was writing the book. Hasn't happened since. So I think there's something to do with creativity, and I think you've hit the nail on the head when you said channeling.
Yeah, I remember. What was it? Talking with someone, and they said, "Do you channel?" Because back then, most of my channeling was done through healing. I wasn't talking on any shows or anything like that, and I didn't even think of healing as being channeling back then. I just said, I tried to type, "No, I don't channel." I wrote it down, tried to write it down, said, "Yes, I channel." I thought, I didn't write that, so I did it again. Tried to write down, "No, I don't channel." "Yes, I channel." I thought, what the hell? I couldn't. He wouldn't let me type. I couldn't channel, and then I realised, damn, I am. I'm healing. I just never thought of it. I just didn't. I know it's coming from the other side. It's not through. It's working through me, but I just never realised I was actually channeling. And lo and behold, when I tried to write, I didn't. He wouldn't let me. It just wouldn't let me write it. So,
as Leonardo said, we bridged the gap between the two worlds.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer in that. I went to see she was a medium, a lovely, lovely woman. So I went round her house to watch a channeling experience, if you like. And then there was about 8 of us. And my mum had a very distinct way of holding. It was a very loving way of holding my face. Just before she kissed me on the forehead, and I got up, and the woman was in a trance, and she said to me, come over here. So I went over towards her, and the woman put her hands on my face exactly the same way as my mum had done hundreds of times before. And then when she came out of it, she said, "Look, I don't know why I done that." She said, "I was just told to do that." And it was very loving, and it was exactly the way my mum would do it. So I think there is a big link between creativity and the other side getting in contact with us. I'm a firm believer of that.
Yeah, it just reminded me. I went to see a fortune teller in 1989, and my mother had previously been to see her in the 70s, but I didn't know this till after. I was just told about her, so I went to see her, and she was an elderly lady. She had a stroke, her hand was all disabled, it was all like this, she couldn't straighten it out and everything. Within seconds, she found the link between me and my mother. She told me my mother was and everything. It was like about 15 years before, and yet there in a second she linked us both and explained, and then told me about my future and stuff, which probably took about 10 years for it all to come through, but everything she said came true. And she used to help police find missing children and stuff. They always used to go to her, and she was an amazing woman, but I think she's long gone by now, I would have thought, because this is 1989, and I was saying now it's 30 years later now. She was an amazing woman. And you're saying about your sign from your mum. I had this something happened. I saw on Facebook something about people saying, "Oh, you should ask people for signs if your loved ones for signs." So I sat down in my kitchen one day and I said, I think I had it in my mind, for my mum to show me she was still there by giving me a hug. And next time I'm sitting there, and I got embraced, and there was no one around, and I thought, oh my God, and I know it was her, and it was like, wow. And I thought to myself, I've been grieving this person for 35 odd years, whatever, 40 years, whatever it was at the time, and now you've just shown me she's here. And it's just
She's
like,
next to you. Yeah.
yeah, and it was like, what the hell? And my grief massively went from that experience. It took me a few days to. It's quite emotional for a few days. My emotions went topsy turvy about 3-4 days. Then they settled down, and almost every year, I think it was around a birthday that I did this. Almost every year after it's on a birthday, she gives me little signs, just letting me know she's around. So that's been the last few years.
These are the things, synchronistic events that we just accept these things, and write them off. I think these things, I think I said in another podcast with you, I think these things happen to us hundreds of times each day on such a minuscule level that we don't even notice them anymore. When they become a little bit more meaningful, we start to notice them, but we write them off as a coincidence. And it's only the top 2% or 3% that are really heavy duty synchronistic events that we notice. And then we always go, oh, that was strange. I think they're there with all of us throughout the whole day.
Well, I don't know if I should share this, but it's going to go on my new podcast anyway, but more in depth. But basically, the other night, I went to bed. I was awake, closed my eyes within 10 seconds. I instantly, my mother passed away in front of me in 1982. She was in my room because I had TV then, and I never thought about that time since that moment. It's never come in my mind at all. But here I was, a few seconds into closing my eyes, boom, I was there, right at the point where she passed away, and I was like, what the hell am I doing here? I'd never been there, not even a nightmare, I never even thought about it until this came into my head. And I remember thinking to myself, it's okay, I know you're going home. Instead of, the instinct was for the grief to take over, but it was like in my head saying, no, it's okay, you're going home. And then I sort of came out of it a bit, and then I went back in it. When I went back in it, my mother's soul was there, but she was standing there. I could see she was there. She was also obviously passed away on the bed, but I could see her soul standing there to show me that she was with me. But the important thing about this, after my mum passed away, I sensed her presence for up to 8-9 years after she passed away. It was really close. I could feel it.
Yeah.
And because I saw this, she basically showed me visually that she was there anyway, even though I knew it. She actually put the pieces together, like you were saying with the jigsaw puzzle. And it was like I was shown she was there. The moment it happened, she was there waiting because she knew I needed her to be around because it was obviously a massive emotional experience and what have you. And that happened the other night, and I was wide awake. I wasn't dreaming. It just happened. All within a few seconds, it was like, what the hell happened? Just happened, you know? And I did feel something lifted off me. After that happened, it just felt something just lift. I don't know what, but I did feel different. I'm not really sure if it's grief or whatever. I don't really know, but I did feel something lifted as well. So, but it was like, wow,
these
moment, you know?
These things are very common. When you go into, because I looked into near-death experiences, and when you go into that, you stumble across people that know their relative has passed but haven't been told yet.
Yeah.
And I experienced that once with my father. I was a milkman at the time. This was before I started writing the book, and before any of this. I was a very material person. So I'm on my milk round, excuse me, and I'm putting the milk down the doorstep. So I've gone back into the wagon again, and I got this really bad feeling in the pit of my stomach that something was terribly wrong. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, what is it? What? And I'd had an argument with my fiance the night before. And I thought, no, it's that. What I'll do is I'll buy her a bunch of flowers and say, yeah, come on, let's not argue anymore. You know, usual stuff blokes go through. I'll get that on the way home. So, and that put this feeling to rest because I've been able to bang a nail into it. And I know what it is now. But I still had this nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach. So gone out of that road, turned the bottom. So it was about half an hour later. I've gone into the next road, and then all of a sudden, one of the vans, small vans, have turned up, and one of the guys that on the milk round at the back of the depot, he'd got out, and he went, "Come on, mate." He said, "You've got to go home." So why? What's the matter? He went, "We've just had a phone call. Your dad's just died." And it was exactly when I had that feeling he died. Halfway round between where I was and where I was back then and where I am now, halfway round, she would have phoned the depot, and it would have took the depot about 10 minutes to get a van out to me. So it was that feeling right back then that was my father dying. So I went home, I went into the flat, and I could still feel his presence.
Yeah.
Nothing had changed. So I said to Mum, "You all right?" She's going, "Oh, yeah." She's obviously crying. She said he's in the bedroom, and what happened was he got up. He didn't feel too well, and it was just a massive heart attack he had. And he went back to bed. He laid down, and that was it. He went. So I walked into the room, and I'd seen him laying in bed thousands of times as growing up, thousands of times. This time, it was different. He was laying in bed. It looked like he was just asleep. That wasn't him, John.
No.
And that was the big nagging feeling in the back of my head. I know he's in this room because I can feel his presence, but that's not him. And it seems a weird thing to say, but it was such a weird feeling. I got this overwhelming feeling. I wanted to look in cupboards because I knew he was there, but that's not him. That's not my dad. So, and that feeling that you know something's happened, it happens so many times to these near-death experiences and people just around this whole subject.
I've actually heard experiences like that a couple of times. An old friend of mine, Mike Riley, his father had passed away, and it wasn't him; it was his little brother. He ended up having a weird sensation go through his body. He said it felt like whenever he puts his leather jacket on, it just freaking came over his back, like you know what I mean, like whenever you throw your jacket on.
Yeah.
It was overwhelming like that. And I've heard I'd say 2 or 3 other people say stuff like that too, where they've experienced sensations like that, and they just knew that they were in the room. You know what I mean? I've never had it to where somebody said they seen the body and knew that they weren't there before, but like that feeling you're talking about, you know what I mean?
It's a strange feeling, very strange.
Yeah. No, it took me a while to wake up and get things straight, but on that stuff you was talking about with the sketches and how they did things in threes, you brought out the number 3 again, so you got me started. Yeah. Okay. So
I remember you saying that from last time. I've been thinking about this quite a bit.
Now, I'm not Vince and Julian, so I'm not as much of a pro as those two are at this numerology stuff, but I can run some things by you that I learned myself from Pythagoras.
Oh yeah, please do.
By Pythagoras. Now 3 is the number. It's an ideal number because it has a beginning, middle, and an end.
Right.
And it was the smallest number of points that could be used to define the plane triangle. Okay. Now the Pythagoreans they revered it, the symbol, and they thought of it as the symbol for the god Apollo back in the day. So, I believe that whenever they go on further, like the number 4 has the 4 elements and stuff, but like when it comes to number 3, that was the symbol that represented the symbol for Apollo, which is the sun god, basically. And I thought that was pretty interesting.
That's what I found in Christianity, the sun god.
Mm-hmm. Now, sacred geometry. Have you done any research into sacred geometry by any chance?
I've done very little. We spoke about this at the start of this podcast. Very little, but when I stumbled across the orbit of Venus and Mercury and beehives and wasp nests and Saturn atop of Saturn, I'm finding the same shape appearing. Just on this subject as well, sacred geometry. The Vitruvian Man, this is jog something, has got 4 points. And when it's pointing upwards, it means the spirit world is in control of what's going on in reality down here in the terrestrial world, which again is as above, so below. So everything keeps going back to this. And I went through a stage, Roger, of finding sacred geometry in flowers and staircases, winding staircase. I found it a fascinating subject, but I didn't go too heavily into it.
Okay. Now, just so you know, too, Apollo's birthday was celebrated on the 7th day of every month.
I was born on the 7th.
Yeah. See, it's pretty interesting how all that works.
Yeah.
But and it's like I said, I'm no pro like those two, but I figured I'd pull it up because you mentioned number 3 again, and I knew that number 3 is really important when it comes to numerology and stuff. So I wanted to point that out for you.
I would love to have a chat with one of these numerologists if anybody can put me in contact with one. I don't know the time. I stopped this years ago. I was looking into this slightly, just on the outskirts of it. And I wanted my birth chart put together because I wanted to see how accurate they can actually be. Everything gets brought back to numbers. Everything, the whole thing of this reality, and this is why, again, another reason that the quantum physicists are saying this is a computer simulation, like the Sims on a computer. That we are just going through the motions and doing what the signal that we receive. Tesla told us there was a signal that he receives. We do what we're told to do, which fits again when you go right the way back to the starting of this, when my friend Russell's death. He had to be in that place at that time. I had to be taken out of the way. There had to be that specific key in front of the woman to put him in that room. That specific house, the flat he was looking at opposite, had to be the last one. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone, let's try there. And the more I go back to this, we are all like toy soldiers marching to the beat of someone else's drum. Yes, we've got free will. You can choose what color socks to put on. This is my belief. There's some people that say the whole thing is you've got free will over the whole thing. I find that difficult to believe because I've been manipulated and put into this particular place to do and put him in that room. So he had to die in that room on that night to set this whole ball rolling. And if we had free will, I don't believe he would have done that. So, yes, you can choose what pants to put on, what trousers, what T-shirt. Do you want to wear your glasses now or later? Or do you want to brush your hair or not brush your hair? Because they are seemingly meaningless things that go on. So you've got free will on that, 100%. I believe when you're given a lesson, you're given free will at that particular point, because the point of all this that I've been finding out is to expand consciousness, is to push everybody's consciousness closer to love than love or hate. Everybody has to lean towards love. And you only know what love is when you understand what hate is. And it's the same with up. You only know what up is when you see down. You only know what black is when you see white. You only know what square is when you see a circle. And it's the duality of this reality that teaches us the lessons to be loving. And I really do believe love is the only thing that's real. Everything else is an illusion.
I believe what you said there. I also think, like with my mum and dad, like how can you say my mum died when I was very young, and obviously I'd change it tomorrow if I could. She'd still be here if I could have my way.
Yeah.
But I know I wouldn't be on the screen now. If she'd still be around, I wouldn't be here now because I had to sort of grow up quick after she passed away, and it's just made me the person I am. I wouldn't
Yeah.
be this person if it hadn't happened. If it, if that makes sense. Even down to my father passed away when I was 40, and he had a little bit of money. He left me a little bit of money, but because of confusion and different things that went on, and a hopeless solicitor, it took over 3 years before I actually got the money that I was supposed to have with him. Which you might think, oh, that's not very good, but it came just at the time where I got separated from my now divorced ex-wife. Came just at the right time, so I could set up a place of my own. I was rented because to get furniture in a place that I was renting, and it was just at the perfect time. If it had come a year after he passed away, then I would have had the money when I was still with my ex-wife. So it would have been whatever spent, whatever. Because it got delayed for all different silly reasons, it came just the perfect time for me to be able to buy myself a PS3, TV, a new kind of sofa, as the essentials, Don't eat as long as I got a TV, stuff like that. It came just at the perfect time, you know what I mean? And it was just like, well, wow, it just was spot on that time. And yet, if you focus on the negative thing, why did it? Why? Well, I would have moved into that place, but it would take me a lot longer to have found all the stuff that I eventually got for it. You know what I mean? It would have. So everything happens for a reason. It's what I try and tell people is to try not to focus on the negative. When the bad shit is happening, it's happening. Yeah, it's not nice. Yeah, fair enough, but it's happening for a reason. There's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. There's going to be something that when you come out of it, there's going to be a reason for it. And I try to tell people to try to focus on to get beyond the negative, because when you like in martial arts, because I've done kickboxing before, when you're in martial arts, they tell you if you're gonna punch someone's face, you don't aim just to hit them there. You're aiming to punch past their face.
Yeah.
And I'm used to the same thing with negative and positive. You try to get beyond if the negative's there, you try to see beyond it, try to get past it. You can't always do it with human beings, we're human bodies. We can't always do it. But that's my view on life, is to try to do that, That's what I aim to try and do.
I was trained in Wing Chun, which is a branch of Kung Fu, basically. It's what Bruce Lee used to use. And the first thing they teach you, if you feel any resistance, don't keep going that way. It's not, otherwise it becomes a test of strength. It becomes a test of will. And only the strongest person and the strongest minded person is going to win out of those two things. So instead of, if you go to punch somebody and they've put their arm up, don't keep pressing to try and connect the punch. Go around the arm and go the opposite way, because then they will keep pressing and they'll you got them off balance. And it works. It works so well. You see so many people, even my son, I'm sending my son to Wing Chun now. And this is such a big metaphor for life. If you keep banging your head against a brick wall and you're not getting anywhere, stop. And the other door will open. And it happens every single time. And that's the phrase, when one door closes, another one opens. But so many people, myself included, you become so not cocky, that's the wrong word, but you become so confident that this is the right way, and you try to force it to happen. Never happens. Never ever happens. So if you relax, you'll see another door. You'll see another way around it. And I've done that hundreds of times.
Yeah. I had how can I say? I was driving home one day, and a very close friend of mine, my actual kickboxing instructor, but we knew each other from we were kids. He committed suicide back, it would have been about 2011. And lo and behold, about 4 years later, me and my partner happened to go to a shop in the town where he used to live, looking to get trainers because we were both running back then. Pure coincidence, hadn't come in a conversation. I'm talking about my friend, and the person I was talking to, the shop owner, said, "Oh yeah, I'm best mates with his wife." I thought, "Oh wow, didn't expect that to happen." And she said, "Yeah, he had depression." I thought, "Oh my God!" And I never knew. None of us ever knew because he was
Yeah.
so cheerful, such
Yeah.
a wild persona. You just did not know. And I thought, "Oh my God, that makes so much sense." So anyway, going back last year, I always rattled my brain why he did it. Still, even though I knew he was depressed, I sort of still was always it was there. And one day I was driving my car, and he came to me, and I was driving my car, and he showed me. This is how I can put into words what he showed me. He fell into a well of despair. That's why he did what he did. He hung himself, and when when I reflected on it, I was told that's a lot of people who commit suicide. That's what happens to them. They fall into this well of despair, and they think it's the only way out is to kill themselves forever. But I was shown there's always a silver chain. There's always a way out. But you just because you're so focused
Yeah,
on
that's
this,
right.
you don't see it. But it's there. It's always someone there. No, this way. Come this way. It'll be fine. But they don't see it, and that's what I was shown. And it was like, wow. It was like quite quite a wow moment, And I haven't thought really no more of him since because I'm at peace with the whole situation now. Now I know what's happened. And
I I had a weird, similar experience when one of my friends passed. Um, I was always really, really, really friendly with this guy, and then I'd heard that he'd passed away. And years before, we had an argument. It was a nonsense argument. It was over such a silly thing, but we never spoke to each other again. And then I heard he'd pass. He passed, and then I had a sleep on the sofa. And just as I was falling into a deep sleep, so I was still aware, but my awareness was fading, and the dream was taking over. I had this a vivid visual picture of him coming back, and he had his arm round me, and he's just smiling with his head to one side, and he just had his arm round me, hugging me, and I went bump straight away. What the hell was that? And I would put money now, knowing what I know about all this. I would put money him saying, "Look, sorry, mate. That's how it come across. Sorry, mate. It was my fault. Sorry." So, and do you know what? I've never thought about any of the problems that I've had with him since that particular moment. But before that, it always hurt me that the situation arose that he done what he done and whatever. But now it done. All debts are paid now.
I I had a friend of mine too that kind of went through that. And when you were talking about kickboxing, my friend he was MMA. He was into the MMA stuff, and a thing that I strongly do believe in is the head injuries when it comes to that. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that you when you go into that kind of sport, you're really putting yourself in a lot of danger when it comes to
Yeah.
head injuries and stuff because my friend his name was Sean Chance, and he went into MMA and he had a full head of hair and freaking teeth and everything, and by the time it was done, man, he had teeth missing and shit. He was in his 20s, and they told him straight up that he had head injuries because of the damage that was done. And well, what happened was is he ended up getting in a relationship with one of my ex girlfriends when I lived in Kansas City, and she ended up having his son, and they got into an argument, and he went down in the basement and freaking committed suicide. And that's exactly what he did. I loved him to death. Don't get me wrong, but when he did that kind of uh, it didn't sit right with me. You know what I mean? So, and the reason why I had a problem with it was because freaking you know, he had a little baby that he left behind, you know, and for me, I just I just don't understand how a person could leave people behind with that kind of stress and pain and anguish, because it's the people you leave behind that hurts the
Yeah.
most out of it. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I had that happen in my life too. You know, he had a baby and a girlfriend and everything. And like I said, he was one of my best friends. I don't intentionally mean to speak out of the way to him, you know, when I'm about him, but it just that is pretty messed up. That's all I got.
I think some people, no one that I know, have done that, committed suicide. It's just, they get it in their mind. Oh, I'll show you. I'm not thinking the fact that, hang on, I'm not going to be here anymore if I do this. They just do it without like, they just focus. Oh, I'll show you now, and they just do it, and or maybe they even like do it in a way sometimes, thinking, oh, I'll be found, or some people even do that. It depends on the nature of how they try it, of course. And I think that's just what it is. It's just tunnel vision. They just focus on it and they're not thinking the fact, hang on, I'm not going to be here tomorrow if I do this. They don't think about that. I do
Yeah.
think that some people, that's why it happens. But no one I know, no one in my circle. But just my theory of it, you know.
It sounds like a form of control, because that's, if you can't control what's happening to you around you, I can
Yeah,
control me.
yeah. That makes sense as well, yeah.
And when you talk to psychologists, you find out that there is no control. They know there's no control. You don't control anything other than your own thoughts
Hmm.
and your own actions. And even the actions part now, going through what I've been through, the actions part is seeming doubtful, because I've been manipulated 100% and put in positions that are so meaningful. It's just ridiculous. I could never have made that decision to put me there, because I never knew that was coming around the corner. So that's another thing that makes me think that if you're supposed to be on a street corner at a particular time, because the wheel has got to come off that car and hit you in the forehead, then you'll be there.
Hmm.
Struggle as much as you want, but you'll be there. If that's supposed to happen, if that's written in the Akashic records, or whatever they call them, the Hall of Records, if that's written at that particular time, you're going to be there.
Yeah.
So you can't control anything external to your mind. Your mind is all you have control over, and even that's doubtful sometimes.
Hmm.
95% of your everyday actions come from a pre-programmed response from your subconscious. And you put a pre-programmed response into your subconscious by doing something, the same thing, exactly the same way, 21 times. For example, I've been a radio presenter. I get into the studio and I move all the little things, even to the position of the telephone. I move all the things on the desk in front of me, so I know where everything is, and it's always put in exactly the same position. So I get up at the end of my show and the next presenter sits down, and I've noticed the next presenter does exactly the same thing, but their position is different to my position. They move things, and you watch anyone, because I'm a being a DJ for so many years, I'm a people watcher. Everybody's got this thing going on with them, and it's built up from 21 times doing the same thing from your subconscious.
You want to see my desk? Oh my
Oh, it's
God,
just,
stuff everywhere.
this is like a tip. It's
I got,
really.
I got
It,
my
it
boys' toys on the desk, everything.
it's
You won't
weird
believe it.
that it's it's weird that you brought that up though, because like with John, what he was saying too, it kind of links into that. But like I've actually had conversations with like my sisters and everybody about this stuff, and here in West Frankfurt where I'm at, there was a suicide that happened where it was just down the way from my niece's house. And this guy was the weird part about it is like it was tunnel vision, like John was talking about, but he
Yeah.
was very methodical. It wasn't just a thought, I'm going to do it, and he doesn't think about it. He planned his suicide out.
Really?
Okay, he put freaking all of the information on the kitchen table to where people could see what he wanted done with his freaking will and everything, his house. He organized his freaking clothes and put them up in, to where they could take care of them, put them in boxes and stuff, and things like that. And he did all this before he walked out into his front yard and hung himself on a tree.
Oh,
You know what I mean? I mean, he literally walked out into his front yard and hung himself on a tree after organizing all this stuff and making sure it was ready. And that was one of the weirdest stories I've ever heard. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And it actually did happen, but I thought that was strange, and then I found out that there's more situations where people do that. You know, it wasn't just him. Like people plan how they're going to how they're going to die, and like you said, with control. You know, it's like it's a control issue. They think
Yeah.
they have complete control,
Yeah.
and they're in that tunnel vision. It's really weird how you guys brought that up because I didn't even think about it until I started listening to you two.
I think some people. This is where I forgot about this. Um, this is what I was shown as well when I was showing about my friend with this well of despair. He showed me that he'd been thinking about it for a long, long time, but nothing had ever pushed him until a certain situation. I think he was training for a triathlon and he got injured, and it really like upset him. I think that was the catalyst to it all and how it ended up. But he showed me that he'd been thinking about it and for a long, long time. So maybe Roger's friend has been thinking about it, and a certain situation, an argument, pushed him over to the fact that, oh, I'm going to do this now. And that's why he did what he did, because it had been pre-planned in his mind maybe for years. He'd been thinking about how he's going to do it, who's going to, what I'm going to write down, because it was pre-planned. It just needed, it needed like the bullet, so to speak, to set him to actually, to do
Yeah.
it. You know what I mean? That's what I think. That's my theory of it. Yeah, just a theory.
Just he needed a catalyst.
Cut this, yeah.
Mm.